Welcome to the Sharkpreneur podcast with Kevin Harrington and Seth Green. Kevin Harrington is the inventor of the infomercial, one of the original sharks from the hit TV show Shark Tank, and has generated over $5 billion in TV and digital direct response sales. Seth Green is the world's first trusted authority on cutting-edge direct response marketing, a best-selling author, and the only 3-time Marketer of the Year nominee. On the podcast, Kevin and Seth interview Sharkpreneurs who share straight talk on what it takes to explode your business.
Do you want to become insanely successful? Do you want to be the go-to guru in your industry? Do you want to be talked about for all the right reasons? For over 40 years, Kevin Harrington has helped people just like you become significant influencers. Now he's broken the process down in the Key Person of Influence Roadmap, and it's yours for free. Just text KPI to him at 727-888-2100. Text KPI to 727-888-2100 right now and claim your free step-by-step guide. Text KPI to 727-888-2100 to get the recognition you deserve and experience the success as the go-to voice everyone listens to in your industry today.
Welcome to the Sharkpreneur podcast. This is your host, Seth Green. Today I have the good fortune to be interviewing enrolled agent Jassen Bowman. He is an expert in the field of tax resolution. And today we're going to be talking about how accountants, attorneys, and other related professionals can benefit from this and add this stream of revenue to their practices. Jassen's site is taxmarketinghq.com. Jassen, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me, Seth. I appreciate it.
It is our pleasure. So let's go back in time. Before you became an expert trainer and marketer of other tax resolution folks, you were a tax resolver yourself. So how did you get started in the tax resolution business, which arguably you kind of pretty much helped invent?
Yeah, it's an interesting story. It's kind of a sob story, I guess. I was a full-time real estate investor and real estate broker in northern Colorado back during the illustrious crash of 2007. And when the real estate market came crashing down, I ended up literally homeless and in Chapter 7 bankruptcy. So at the time, I simply needed a job so I could put food on the dashboard because I was literally living in my vehicle. So long story short, I ended up taking a part-time seasonal job, working evenings and weekends in a kiosk in a super Walmart, doing tax returns at one of the big national franchise tax prep chains. And just because I was driving around one day, they had a sign out saying, "Hey, we're hiring." So I walked in the door. And then about a month after I got that job, a friend of mine, I was talking to her, and she had just started a job as a receptionist at a company in Denver that was doing this thing I had never heard of called tax resolution. And she was like, "Well, if you need a full-time job, they're hiring for an admin assistant." So here I was at the age of 30, starting my career completely over in a field I knew nothing about, simply because I needed to put food on the dashboard, was in bankruptcy, living in my car, and working 60, 70 hours a week just to try to get back on my feet. So that's how I got into this. Fortunately, after about 6 months in a $10 an hour administrative assistant role, the owners of the tax resolution company that I was employed at, they realized that I had these other skill sets, particularly in marketing, that I brought with me from my previous real estate career. And I had owned a web design company back in the day of the brochure style web pages that sadly some folks still have. So after about 6 months as an admin assistant, I moved into a marketing and operations management role. And I took this small 6-person tax resolution firm, and within 17 months, I grew it from 6 people and $750,000 a year to 40 people and about $3.3 million a year in less than a year and a half.
That is absolutely incredible. What were some of the secrets behind your geometric growth rate?
Really it all came down to two primary things. One, was looking for more than one source of leads. I'm a firm believer that no practitioner should ever have a single source of business. Dan Kennedy always says one is the loneliest number in business, and it's true. And so most of the thing you got to understand about tax resolution, most of the big firms are very hardcore boiler room telemarketing driven. And this was before I wised up to some of the ethical concerns that I'll talk about later, I'm sure. But that's what drove revenue at this firm. And so really, I didn't do anything. There was nothing special, nothing secret to it, in my opinion. It was just diversification of lead sources, from pure telemarketing to this wild and crazy thing called the internet. With Google AdWords being the primary pay-per-click driver at the time, doing direct mail. And, this was in an industry where people were saying, people on the internet don't spend money. And people don't go to their postal mailbox anymore, both of which are still bogus to this day. It was also, actually qualifying leads, improving the sales process. So qualifying leads when they come in and lead follow-up. Big problem in the tax resolution industry is that too many people, they give up on their prospects after 1 or 2 weeks. My personal record for, from the time I had a consultation with somebody that didn't hire me, and then the length of time that they were in my follow-up cycle until they eventually did hire me is 28 months, 2 years, 4 months.
That's awesome.
So it's just doing things like that can really lead to really rapid growth in a practice. So after I did that, I went off into private practice. I started to have some ethical concerns about the industry, and the company wasn't willing to make any changes in certain arenas. So I went off on my own in October of 2010. And within 10 months of doing that, I went from absolute zero to $35,000 a month in recurring revenue in my own practice. And the best part of it is that by August of 2011, I was working from Japan. And then I spent 3 more years working while traveling full time, essentially living the infamous 4-hour work week lifestyle. If you're familiar with Tim Ferriss,
absolutely.
And proving that could be done. And then that's how I got started.
That is absolutely incredible. And if it doesn't, I am sure the longer version of that could fill a book. I realized I know you've written several, we didn't even define it at the beginning. So what is tax resolution?
Tax resolution is the process of representing a tax debtor. So somebody that owes money to the IRS or to their state Department of Revenue, and the process of getting them out of trouble. That's the general definition. Some people do this, some people don't. I break it up and I look at the examination world, so the audit world, as being very different from the collections representation world. Some people lump them together, but they are really two fairly unique areas of practice. They're different skill sets, different knowledge bases that you need. And so, occasionally a practitioner will ask me something about audit, and I'll be the first to tell you, I don't know squat about the audit world. I couldn't defend a taxpayer under examination if I had to. My skill set is, firmly rooted in the collections side of things, and I'm okay with that. I always like to point out, who makes more money, a cardiac surgeon or a family physician. The old saying, riches and niches, it's
Yes.
true. When you specialize, you make more money than a general practitioner. So why would I want to be a generalist? Absolutely.
Makes a ton of sense. So you talked about tax debtor, somebody who owes money. This isn't someone who's paying on April 15th the amount they owe. This is someone who, for whatever situation, is unable to pay the amount they are owed. Is that correct?
That is correct. Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
We work with the deadbeats.
Okay, let's rephrase that because I am sure there are folks who are going to listen to this who would not consider themselves deadbeats,
correct,
but have issues with the IRS. They didn't withhold enough. They needed the money to live on, so they didn't withhold enough or save enough, and now they have a nasty bill that they need help getting resolved.
Correct. So, and you know, Seth, and that's the reality. So there's this perception out there in the world, or at least in America, that the people that don't pay their taxes are deadbeats. That is the perception amongst the people that do pay their taxes. But when you're a CPA, an EA, a tax attorney that's actually working with these folks, here's what you actually discover. You actually discover that the majority of these people they're hardworking Americans. A lot of them are mom and pop small businesses, family businesses with tax debt problems. You know, they're not your people living in the ivory castle that are supporting an excessive lifestyle by not paying their taxes. They're just hardworking Americans that fell onto bad circumstances. You know, they got ill. Somebody passed away. They were in a business that is being hit hard by economic conditions like the recession, or we're going to see a new wave of tax debtors of small mom and pop businesses that are being directly impacted by the tariff war that we're engaged in right now with a couple countries. So it's not the deadbeat. Most of the time, it's hardworking people that have just fallen on bad times due to some circumstance. A lot of times, it's completely beyond their control. So you are correct. It's there's that misnomer about it.
Okay.
Sure.
I appreciate the correction. All right. So one more question about tax resolution as a service, and then we'll talk about the business side of it. So for someone who is facing that situation, who got behind, who didn't have the money to pay the tax bill, what can a tax resolution expert like you were and like you train, what can they do for them?
So the majority of the time, the problem that these people need is the solution they need is breathing room. You know, most people, if given enough time, they can, more or less cash flow their way out of the situation. But they need time to either find another job, to adjust their withholding. They need time to work out payment plans with vendors. They need time to adjust their payroll. Sometimes they got to lay people off. Time is the number one thing that they need. And when they're under the gun from the IRS, they don't have that time because the IRS has the authority and the power to garnish paychecks and to suck money straight out of people's and businesses' bank accounts. And that's what they do. And so as a taxpayer representative, my job and the job of the CPAs, EAs, and tax attorneys that I train is to go in there and first and foremost stop the threat of that. It's called levy action. Stop the seizure of that money from bank accounts, paychecks, etc. And then the vast majority of people, they wind up on a payment plan. Some people that are below their income is below what are called the collection financial standards. They may be eligible for what's called non-collectible status, and so all collection action stops. They don't pay anything to the IRS at all. And then some people are able to, maybe cash out some equity and assets, pay part or all of the IRS bill, and then a very, very, very tiny fraction, less than 1/3 of 1% of all tax cases resolved are eligible for the offer and compromise program, which is the infamous quote unquote pennies on the dollar that everybody hears about. Yeah. But for practitioners, it's actually the least common option for a tax debtor is the offer program. But that's the gist of it.
Okay, awesome. So we've done a good job explaining what tax resolution is and a little bit about your background. You built the first firm that you worked at up a lot. You left, you started your own, you built that up. You have now been training other financial professionals, whether they're lawyers, accountants, financial advisors, for many years in how to do this. What prompted you to start teaching others?
It was largely the same thing that led me to leave the firm that I was an employee at in Denver. And when I started looking out at the industry as a whole, there was this big ethics concern. If you've ever seen the movie Boiler Room or
Yes.
Was it Wolf of Wall Street, the telemarketing operations at these big fly-by-night tax resolution firms are exactly like these pump and dump stock operations that were, common back in the 80s. And so this is obviously concerning because it means that the end consumer, the customer, the client, they are not getting the service that they deserve. And there is a long track record of these, and I don't pull any punches when I say this, but these scumbag rip-off tax resolution companies that they take money from people that are vulnerable in a very vulnerable situation, and they're looking for a lifeline. And these companies pretend to offer one, and all they do is take their money and not do any of the work. Huge problem that's been ongoing for 20 years.
That almost sounds like the debt resolution, the debt reduction, credit card reduction firms that do the same thing, and they spent money and magically their credit score didn't improve and nothing changed.
Correct. It's very, very, very similar. And so when I had been in private practice for about a year and a half or so, and I saw this need, and I'm like, okay, I'm going to start doing a little bit of publishing. I'll do the occasional webinar, and I'm just going to see if there's other independent practitioners. Your small, mom and pop, accounting firms, kitchen table operations, whatever you want to call it, that want to get involved in doing this work. Because I was a solo practitioner, and I was like, why aren't other solo practitioners helping these people in their local community rather than these tax resolution clients getting ripped off by these big national firms? So I started doing a little bit of that, and I wrote my first couple of books. I did the occasional training webinar, but it was always kind of a hobby type thing on the side, obviously, to my actual tax resolution practice. And then what happened is I was living in Sydney, Australia at the time, and I had a good practice. I had a good life there. But what I realized is that even though I had a good income and I had a good life, I wasn't building any wealth in my practice or in my personal life. And so I still remember the date. It was June 22nd, 2014. I came back to the United States. And I really haven't left since. And I came back with the intention of really just blowing up my tax resolution firm and making it big so that I could start, saving for retirement. And I guess the word today is adulting.
Yeah.
And being a responsible, mid-30s person. So when I came back, I do things to extreme. And so I embarked on a 42-city tour over the course of 4 months, meeting with other enrolled agents primarily, and I taught a free 2-hour ethics continuing education class. And I would have some really dinky little meeting rooms in some oddball, like fourth-tier cities and small towns all over the United States. And my goal in doing that was to build referral partnerships so that I could, because other EAs were not doing this work. Less than 2% of EAs do representation work. And so I'm like, well, if they're not going to do it, I'll become their friend and I'll take their referrals off their hand. And that worked very, very, very well. But there was an interesting side effect to it. And that was that I did meet quite a few other EAs that wanted to actually do the work, but there wasn't much out there in the way of really pragmatic training. There was one company that has been doing boot camps for a long time, but a lot of people say, it's too fast paced. I didn't really get a whole lot out of it. We're looking for something that's more hands on and whatnot. It was like, we loved your ethics class. You should teach other classes. And so, thus, the thing that was a side business turned into a much bigger business than I ever intended it to. And along the way, I co-founded a tech startup in Seattle that's venture backed, that provides continuing education based HR solutions for large law firms and public accounting firms. I've also got a pretty robust CPE company, and then the marketing side as well, and everything that's grown into today.
Awesome. Congratulations. It's obviously been an incredible journey and you've done amazing. So for the financial advisors, accountants, attorneys who are listening to this, why might they want to add tax resolution to their practice, and how do they do it? Because I'm guessing if they don't know anything about it, they've got this big they've got a whole bunch of things that have popped in their heads right now, like a fear of, I don't want to go against the IRS, or how's a little guy like me going to figure this out? And what issues am I going to have? Is this going to affect my other clients and all that stuff?
Yeah, very, very common thing. Like I said, less than 2% of EAs do this kind of work. Less than 10% of CPAs in private practice do it, and even less than a couple thousand tax attorneys across the country do this. And we all know that there's a bazillion attorneys. So why aren't there more doing it? And it goes back exactly to what you just said, Seth. Is the fear of going to battle with the IRS or a state Department of Revenue. And the other flip side of it, kind of going back to that deadbeat misnomer that we talked about a few minutes ago, is these practitioners think that these tax debtors are deadbeats and that they don't have any money to pay your fee. And the thing is that both of those two things are misconceptions. Again, most of these people actually do have cash flow. They have money coming in, and they can pay your fee, sometimes up front, sometimes over time. But you can definitely get your fee paid, and the systems that you have to have in place, the sales scripting that you have to have in place, those are two very high level examples of the kind of stuff I teach in my training. So understand, first of all, if you're an EA, CPA, JD listening to this, and you think that you can't get paid by these people, I'm here to tell you that you're wrong, and that it is not nearly as daunting as you think it is, because these people actually do have the ability to pay. Okay, surprising number of them. On the IRS side, I always, whenever somebody says, it's just too scary to add a new service offering, what I always say is, okay, think about back to the first tax return you ever prepared. Did you fully know what you were doing?
Of course not.
Of course not. Okay. And so it's just like with everything else that you've done in your professional career, there is a period of time where you want to have training wheels, for lack of a better term. And so going through a training program, just like you did when you started specializing in whatever else you already specialize in, when you first started doing tax returns, and you have somebody by your side. And that's a big part of why our program has grown to hundreds of people that are doing this kind of work, and they like having myself and a couple of my colleagues that help out, as well as all the other members in our digital community. We have the largest digital community of resolution-only practitioners in the country. And everybody helps each other out. So you get that support side. But also there needs to be an understanding that this does take marketing. It does take a little bit of sales acumen. And, most CPAs, they get zero sales training in their entire career, So a big part of what I try to do is to help practitioners avoid wasting money on marketing efforts that don't work, and also helping them learn how to actually sell. And for selling representation services, you do have to have a little bit of sales skill. It's not like a tax return where everybody knows they have to do it, and it's more of a commodity service. Tax resolution is much more hands-on. It is not a commodity service. And you have to do it's not a hard pitch selling like some of these big tax resolution firms do, but you got to have a little bit of that sales element in there.
Little pizzazz. A
little bit, yeah. And then there's the efficiency and profitability side of things, more commonly referred to as practice management. Probably more than anything else, I'm known as the checklist guy in the industry. I literally wrote the book on all the checklists that you need to have in place in order to run a successful tax resolution practice. And adapting those checklists and those systems, those processes to how you do business is something that I think everybody needs to learn, and that's something else that we teach. And then, of course, on the casework side, it is technical. There are new tax laws that, not tax laws that are new. That's one of the nice things about tax resolution. It doesn't change every year, unlike tax prep. But there's a new body of tax law, a new body of IRS regulations and procedures that people have to learn. And so obviously we have the technical training on that as well. So for those folks that are looking to delve into it, hope you don't mind if I give a blatant plug for the website.
Please go right ahead.
But taxmarketinghq.com. And you could see, our continuing education. We do a ton of continuing education, both from the very, very basic beginning level all the way up to super advanced stuff, both live seminars and via webinar. And then, of course, we'll help you out. We have a program where we can, hold you by the hand. You become part of our community, and you get access to marketing toolkits, the ongoing training, able to bounce ideas and casework questions off myself, Dan Han, a CPA I work with, the other members in our community. We're really here to be helpful and help you get your practice not only off the ground, but also profitable and sustainable for a long period of time.
Awesome. That makes a ton of sense. So if you're an accountant, a financial advisor, or an attorney looking to add another stream of revenue to your practice and do very good work for people who will be incredibly appreciative of it, unlike a traditional tax return where people always seem to be, most of the time, they're upset with how much they owe or that they're not getting a bigger refund back, or the lawyer who doesn't get to be a hero every day because his clients are afraid the billing meter starts when the phone rings. This one, people actually, you will get hugs, you will get tears, people will love you for it. You will reduce so much stress because it's probably one of the biggest, most stressful things. I've been through it, and it's one of the biggest, most stressful things when the big bad IRS, or I've been audited 3 times by the New York State Department of Labor and won every time. But until after the first one, when I won, up until the point when they said, "We're sorry, we owe you money," and I said, "Wow, that must be your best call today." He's like, "Yeah, we don't get to give good news too often." He's like, "So I was actually happy to come back and tell you that we are giving you money." So absolutely make sure to check out taxmarketinghq.com. Jason, thank you so much. We greatly appreciate you being here.
Thank you, Seth. I appreciate it.
Thanks, everybody, for listening, and we'll talk to you next time.
Do you need money to fund your idea, product, or service? Are you ready to take your business to the next level but need capital to get it done? Kevin Harrington has heard more than 50,000 pitches and knows how to help you make the perfect pitch to get the funding for your entrepreneurial dream. He's distilled the process down in his perfect pitch cheat sheet, and it's yours for free. Just text PITCH to him right now at 727-888-2100. Text PITCH to 727-888-2100 right now and claim your free perfect pitch cheat sheet. Text PITCH to 727-888-2100 to start funding your dream today.
This show has been produced by Market Domination, LLC. To discover how you can have your own show completely done for you and turn it into a real published book and become the authority in your marketplace, go to www.marketdominationllc.com/podcast offer.